All right. So I'm the one with too many links today. But anyway, this guy named Andy Slavitt is fantastic. And he was some kind of government official. And he wrote How to Open Up Safely, which is very interesting because I think everybody knows what we need to do. He talks about this, but I listened to a podcast with him being interviewed from the Daily Beast, and it said something I hadn't realized, which has really changed my mind. He realized the vaccine is not going to work. This should have been obvious to everybody, but he said this stuff is basically like the flu, and the flu vaccine has a 30% effectiveness rate. He said people are expecting something like the vaccines with 98% effectiveness, where after everybody gets the vaccine, we can just go back to normal, and that is just not going to happen. This is going to be with us forever. All this social distancing, no movie theaters, no sports events, no concerts, that's just going to be it for years. And I hadn't really caught on to that. So anyway, what we have to do if we ever want to open safely is all this stuff. We have to have social distancing, masks, screens, disinfecting everything, quarantining thing, keeping track of who goes everywhere so you can do contact tracing, or you can't open up. And it is abundantly clear that the United States public is totally not going to do that. Half of them are not even going to wear masks. And he writes about this, and it basically is a social justice issue. The problem is that it primarily affects poor people and Black people and Latino people, and the rich white people are at less risk, and the old people are at risk, but the young people aren't. So there's a large group of young white people that feel like it's okay for them to just take risks, and they don't care who else they hurt. And we really would need more social caring for other people to get through this safely, which is totally not forthcoming in our society. And this is what my one of my Chinese patriotic students said a few months ago when we used to still have face-to-face classes. He said the problem with America is you don't have any interest in the good of society. Nobody's willing to sacrifice to help others here the way they would in China, where everybody feels patriotic and we should all work together, which I think is very much true. I mean, there's a huge, from Mao and everything, there's a huge issue that you should sacrifice your personal desires for the greater good. That's a really big part of the culture there, and it's a really small part of the culture here, as far as I can tell. Anyway, look like you have something to say, Liz.
That's not consistent with my experience with Chinese culture. I think that's the official story. And that's what everybody's told. But I see the flip side of that, which is it's also a very me first and me only culture.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, around by their government. I mean, they could effectively approach the virus because the government just forced people to go into quarantines and stuff.
They're also having a major second wave right now. So
sure, but nothing like we are. But anyway, so what I think is going to happen in America is, as just like healthcare, it won't be the government and it won't be for everybody. It'll be from your employer. So employers are now developing plans to protect their own employees. So your boss will protect you from coronavirus and enforce the social distancing and do the contact tracing inside your company, keeping track where everybody is. I think that is what we're really going to see, because the only thing we really do have here that works is the private sector, rich people running corporations and stuff. That's what actually runs the country. Anyway, so it's interesting to watch. And I thought, and this is what they're doing in France. They're putting puppets in half the seats to space people out, which is just a way to me of fooling people. Obviously, you're going to go broke. Unless you can double the ticket price, you're never going to be able to survive this way. So obviously you need to just close the theaters and give up. Emptying, this is, that's what there's a Mexican restaurant in San Francisco just had an article saying we opened up, but we're not making enough money to survive. And I don't know what we're going to do, because obviously the social distancing measures mean you only make half as much money and you can't survive. So I think we're going to have huge permanent changes in our culture. Anyway, that's the stuff I wanted to mention. What have you got?
Didn't somebody say it was going to be a major inflation on the dollar?
Be inflation
coming up soon?
Yeah, they say inflation is beginning to come because of all the deficit spending. That's probably true. That would be the logical consequence.
So higher inflation plus people who can't make money, can't make enough to survive. This is going to be wonderful.
Well, yes, and that's why, I mean, the tech companies, the startup podcasts I listen to say you have to have enough cash to survive 3 years with no profit or you're not going to make it. So people like Apple and Google can do that and everybody else is going to die. That sounds about right, unless what you're selling is something that sells better right now, like Zoom. A few people are selling remote working products and they're doing well, but everybody else is pretty much doomed.
Small businesses don't have like 6 months worth of cash for expenses. So
no, so I think retail and restaurants and theaters and everything are just toast. What they were hoping is the same thing I was hoping. They'll have a vaccine and everything will just go back to normal. And that is just not going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think herd immunity is a thing. What I do wonder is if this will at some point die out. Like if it will eventually, if it'll just keep coming in waves or if it'll eventually,
if it comes like the flu, then no, because we still haven't figured out the flu.
Yeah, I don't see any reason for it to ever stop like AIDS. I mean, it's just diseases that affect a steady small number of people are like a forest fire you can't put out. It just keeps burning and burning and burning.
Yeah, the constant mutation's a problem.
Yeah, I don't see, I think we're just going to have to be a less socially close culture for years. Anyway, so the Blue Leaks, this one's interesting. It's from you, right, Liz?
Yeah. That I thought this was a pretty interesting story. It hit the news this last week, and it was kind of all over the media. But the original source was from the Krebs on Security blog, which is a really good security blog to read if you're looking for something out there. I've gotten a lot of really good stories off of here before, but I thought this was interesting in that it seemed like a model that could happen to just about any municipality. And I know that a lot of them are very sort of cocky about this, like county and city governments, because they've never gotten hit before, so they don't really think that it could be a problem. But I thought this is a great example of how it could happen in your county, because a lot of what happens is that city and county agencies will outsource things like their web hosting or stuff like that, which happened in this case, and then the third party provider gets hit and chaos ensues. So
yeah, and it was 247 gigs of unredacted email. So it's got to have all kinds of sensitive stuff. This is one of the things that really affected me years ago in like 2012, was when the Anonymous LulzSec dumped out police reports from people reporting on the drug dealers and murderers next to them with the real addresses so gangs could retaliate on them. I was really upset by that. And I would think this is probably similar. There's probably a lot of innocent victims communicating with police whose data is now out.
Right. And I didn't think about that as an angle, but that's absolutely an issue. The angle that I was thinking about was the way that they probably compromised a ton of active investigations this way. And
of course, what they wanted to do is probably true too, that it's probably leaking a lot of dirt about police misconduct.
Right.
But this kind of sloppiness has a lot of collateral damage.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me close a few of these. So Office 365?
Office 365 is now implementing the Microsoft ATP, their antivirus basically.
Safe documents.
Yep.
Oh, Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection. I wonder if that actually works.
Supposedly it's working.
Defender's getting better.
Yeah.
Defender used to be a joke, but in the last couple of years, Defender's actually getting to be pretty effective at stopping known attacks, so it might be good. I know Microsoft browser protections have for years been considered by far the best because they actually communicate with the end user well until other browsers finally had to imitate them. But that sounds good.
Yeah, so now it's part of the Microsoft Office suite.
But disabled by default. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, still, it's a good idea because every time I go to like security conferences and do the hands-on workshops, there's a ton of them on malicious Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. It's still a major way to do phishing attacks.
Yeah. So I think this will, if this works right, this will help cut down on that.
Yeah, I think it will. Good. And Kaitlyn, this one I thought was awesome. But when I read it, it seems like I can't really turn it into a project right away, which is, of course, the first thing I wanted to do.
Right. Okay, so here's the idea behind this RCE from any website.
Yeah.
What BitDefender does is that it intercepts your HTTPS traffic to make sure you're not going to malicious sites. And then if you go to a malicious site, it will pop up a message in your browser saying, hey,
Wait.
you went to this site that's really bad. Don't go there and go somewhere else.
Wait, stop. It intercepts your HTTPS traffic. Now, wait a minute.
Yes.
How could it even do that?
That's the point. So what the security people did, or researchers did, is they went in and they used this against the antivirus software to inject their own code into the system. So you go to any website and you make it look malicious, and then you trigger the antivirus, and then you craft that site in such a way that it sends the data that you want to run on the computer through the antivirus software that's intercepting your HTTPS traffic.
Nice.
I remember, and the thing I said was this page always is the same for every website, and this page includes some code that came from the other site, right?
Yep.
So
exactly,
it totally defeats the same origin policy. Your browser thinks it's going to the same page, but it includes untrusted code. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this seems to be very common. Like the one from a couple of weeks ago, where every antivirus goes through a scan, says, "Oh, delete this later." Then it comes by later to delete it, so it's got a race condition. They all seem to do something really foolish with threats once they find them. But these guys say it's actually better than most antivirus, which is pretty awesome. That's why for the last 5 years, all the security experts have been ragging on antivirus and saying this stuff is junk. And there seems to be some truth in what they're saying.
The Windows Defender is not terrible.
No, Windows Defender, the only problem with it is the database was miserable. It wasn't stopping very many threats, but I never heard of any major security flaws caused by Windows Defender. Yeah. And now they've improved the database. So, in the long run, why does antivirus even exist? I mean, Microsoft makes the operating system. They ought to make the defense. The only reason antivirus exists is because of a defect in Windows. If Microsoft patched their Windows, you wouldn't need antivirus anymore. Anyway, good. That's a good one. And now we're back, right? So then this stuff, I was looking at what the government did, and I just thought it was very interesting because the Republican position now seems to be universal, that their explanation is there is no racism in America. There's no systematic racism. All the Black Lives Matter people are just complaining about nothing. That's the official government position. And I just thought it was interesting. Here's one of many chart websites that has a lot of charts showing this. And the thing that really, there's a lot of charts showing, of course, that there's a huge amount of systemic racism in America. But another thing I thought was really good was this video from a few years back where this guy just had a race, and he goes, before you start the race, he has you take 2 steps forward if you've never had to take your money and give it to your parents to pay the rent that month. If you've never run out of food and had no food for a couple of days and things like that, until you realize the same thing I wondered, because we had all these initiatives at the college and elsewhere to recruit black people, and you can't find enough candidates to recruit enough black people. She said, where are they? And he said, the thing is, you've got just a series of burdens that hold them back at many levels to where wherever you measure it, there's less than you'd expect because you keep filtering them out. And so the ones you see are the ones that had to somehow fight to the front over great obstacles. Anyway, I thought it was very interesting to see. And but anyway, as far as the next election goes, the problem is Democrats. This guy had a very good point. And his point is that the Democrats think that Trump won because a bunch of Americans are basically Nazis and they love being racist or something. He said, that's not true at all. People don't vote for anybody these days. They just vote against somebody. And everybody hated Hillary and everybody pretty much hated Trump. And a bunch of them said they hated Trump, but they voted for him anyway because they also hated Hillary and he was like barely acceptable. They say what you need to do is just be normal and don't go crazy and start doing the radical left-wing stuff. Just try to be normal because nobody hates Biden. Biden is like the Methodists. He's like bland and peaceful and calm. And, nobody could really hate Biden. He doesn't say horrible things. So he just needs to keep on doing that. Don't make people hate you. And people will find you acceptable. That's his plan. Anyway, that's an interesting position to take. And I think it touches something I saw another election analyst say a while ago, which is that almost everybody votes against them on now. Almost nobody actually thinks their candidate is any good. They just hate the other guy. That's what drives most voting. And I think that is true for what it's worth.
It's horrible, but yeah.
I think that's true too, but I do have to disagree on one point. Biden does say stuff that will make large populations of candidates hate him, and it's not.
What did he say?
I mean, so he's got a poor track record.
What about shooting protesters in the legs instead of the chest?
Yes, that was my first thought.
What? What was that?
All right, go ahead, Kaitlyn said my first thought.
In response to the police brutality going on to the protesters with the rubber bullets, Biden's first, I guess he didn't think this out, but his first idea was shoot them in the legs, not in the chest, where it's less deadly.
Well, that is in fact the official recommendation of how to use rubber bullets.
Then also stuff like poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Well, sure.
I bring this up because I think that they are doing the Democrats are doing the same thing they did in 2016, which is choosing an unelectable candidate.
Well, just choosing just a very bland candidate.
What's that?
I think Biden's totally electable. He's just very bland. So he doesn't stand out.
Who else would you have?
That is what makes him stand out to Trump.
Yeah, I think he's the most electable candidate. I don't think Bernie would be more electable. Who would you like?
Oh, Bernie would be way more electable.
I think Bernie would be more electable.
I think Bernie would be more electable. I think Elizabeth Warren would be more electable than Hillary or Biden. I think both of those are mistakes.
I think at first glance, someone like Bernie is less electable, and that until Bernie gets on stage and in front of everyone and everyone can see him and his energy.
No, we had the Democratic primary, and the Democratic base made it very clear that they do not regard those people as electable. So,
Democratic base, but that's not the people that are going to be voting in the general. So that they're catering to. The Democrats are always going to vote for the Democrats, and the Democrats are always worried about, well, if we put someone out there that's too, that's too much, that people, it's going to drive. And I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think the American people are going to be like, oh no, it's somebody with energy, we got to run away.
Right.
They also chose Biden before every state had their primaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
how
did that work?
The Democrats have a plan, and their plan is always play it safe. Yep. Go with the safe candidate. Go with the boring candidate. Go with the person who's just has some experience and doesn't get anyone excited.
Yes. And I think that's the right thing to do when you're trying to get rid of Trump.
That might work out. That gamble might work out this time. Might.
Right, but it's how is that going to work out in 4 years?
Right, 4 years.
4 years. I think this is something I heard a while ago. I think Biden should announce that he's a one-term president, that he's not even going to run again, and his vice will be the next one to run. And that should be somebody like Elizabeth Warren. I think that would be winner. We have 1 4-year term of just a boring guy to quiet the chaos, and then we can put in somebody more liberal. I think that's a logical thing to do.
I don't get how he hasn't announced a running mate yet.
He's having an internal battle about who to choose. I'm sure a bunch of people want him to choose Warren, and a bunch of people really want him to choose someone black, like Kamala Harris, and they're still waiting to see what to do. But I mean, I think I would be very frustrated by Biden's slowness and lack of energy, but most polls say he's doing the right thing. All you have to do is not make a mistake and sit quietly and let Trump destroy himself. That's working very well so far.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, even some Republicans have said enough is enough with Trump, and they're actually going to vote for Biden after a lifetime of Republican voting. So
A lot of them, this is something Napoleon Bonaparte said early on. He said, never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. It's a good plan. I don't think Biden needs to do anything until Trump actually stops shooting himself in the foot, in case that ever happens. And Trump has been struggling for a message that he can put out about Biden that makes him into the bad guy, makes him the focus. He wants to say it's Biden being senile or Biden being corrupt or something, and none of that is working. He's not come up with any mud that sticks to Biden. Right now, the election is 100% about Trump. It's a referendum on do you love Trump? And they're never going to win that way. He needs to make it hating Biden. The way they made people hate Hillary, that worked for Trump. You make the other person into a demon, and he's not having any luck turning Biden into a demon. So all Biden has to do is not create a scandal.
there's a lot of low-hanging fruit with Hillary, though. That was a pretty easy sell.
Yeah,
I mean,
it wasn't. I mean, things like the Benghazi and the email servers is not low hanging fruit. That was all that stuff was really trumped up.
I agree, but I mean, there was enough real reasons that they, then they chose more to focus on the specious reasons because those were easier to sensationalize. But there was enough real dirt on her that, I mean, the Clintons neither the Clintons nor Biden have a real great track record so far as, the way that their policies have affected Black people in the past and their attitudes towards Black people. Now, that said, Trump's are infinitely worse.
Yes.
And I think, we've got, yet again, we have a choice between picking the least racist candidate here.
Right, and that's what it's looking like. Is who's the least racist candidate? That maybe the one.
And that's my issue. When are we going to get to the point that we don't have like total pieces of garbage as our candidates?
And that might be what Sam said about it. In the next 4 years, we have somebody who's boring and bland, and then after that, we can finally pick somebody who isn't the lesser of two evils.
Well, this is why I think there's so much enthusiasm about Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, because what we really need to do is get the money out of politics. And they're the only candidates that are going to do anything about that. I mean, the point is it's extremely corrupt. It's the big PACs controlling everything. And, we need real change to fix that. But now I think is the time for a return to normalcy, and the big leftward shift has to come later. Anyway.
Yeah. It's like it reminds me of the situation with the colleges, though. The problem is administrators sucking up all the money and wasting it, but the rules aren't going to change because they're the ones making the rules. It's the same with government and campaign financing. We have these legislators making the rules who directly benefit from getting paid off, so they're not going to change the rules.
Well, but in the same spirit, our new chancellor at City College seems not to be as crazy as the last one. When I Googled him, I didn't find anything in the top 40 hits that was him being run out of town on a rail or prosecuted or anything, which is a big step forward. It's very much like Biden. It's moving from an F to a C. That's improvement. Anyway, all right. So let's see what we got here. Then we got Discord, stealing your account.
Yes. So there's a little debate on this, but I think this only affects Windows users. Then again, it said in one of the articles that I read about this that it affects the web client users. So
that's everybody then.
Yeah, but so I believe what happens is essentially. There's a crack available, or it purports to be a crack that allows users to get Nitro Boost, which is Nitro Boost, in case you don't know, it's like the premium subscription tier for Discord. So you can pay, $5 or $10 or whatever, and then it confers special privileges. You can do it on your server and you get, special features and stuff like that. Well, the reason I think that it still may only affect Windows users is because this particular brand of malware, this Anarchy Grabber malware, is it's a malicious exe that somebody downloads, and then they've modified it from its previous version, because its previous version was easily detectable by like Windows Defender and other, malware and antivirus protection, but they modified it to evade those services. So
How
pretty
can it
interesting.
evade antivirus?
I think that this is sort of an evolving. I mean, it's sort of a hot area for virus authors, because there are different ways. They change it every so often so that the signatures don't match. They change the packers, stuff
Right.
like that.
So
So
they have to keep updating it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And what example, or what are these advanced Discord features you might want? Discord just seems useless to me. I've been to a few conferences that run it. It just seems very annoying.
a lot of people like it. I mean, just like Slack, I'm not really a big fan. I use it because I have to for certain things. But I'm a dinosaur, so I like IRC.
I know.
But
I know.
a lot of people like Discord and Slack, so that's what they use.
Yeah, I have to use Discord for the competition program because that's where most of my kids are.
Yeah, I have to use it for the cyber competitions teams, because that's all they want to use. So
Yeah. Well, it seems sort of to work, but it seems to be pretty annoying to use. Yeah. All right.
I agree. The only good thing about it is that it provides for a more asynchronous mode of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then new security features. I'd like to know what they are.
That were disclosed during yesterday's keynote.
Okay. And
So
so these are
there's
for iOS?
for everything, really.
iOS and Mac. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a new privacy disclosure that's going to show up to tell you what the app wants to use. The way that they kind of described it is like the nutritional facts in any food product.
It's a good idea.
The permission for cross-app tracking will be showing up. You can set a proxy location so that it's not specific, but in this area you're somewhere around, there'll be a new little light that tells you when the camera or the microphone is in use.
I've noticed this parenthetically. This is why I say, as far as I can tell, nobody edits anything anymore. Just often in the headline itself or the first line, they've got ridiculous typos and mistakes these days, and no one seems to catch them. Everyone seems to just be blogging without any editor. Anyway, go ahead.
I saw that too. New camera mic indicator.
Well, I thought they had that, but I guess they're making it more obvious.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't have it on mine.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't tell you if the camera's on. That's rude.
Nope.
Wow, I've never seen one that doesn't have a dot to tell you if it's on. That would seem like an important feature.
And the thing is, even the ones that have it sometimes have it set up wrong. So it's not like there's an LED that's connected to the power to the camera. It's like a separate subsystem. So it's still possible to turn on the camera without the light going on, but whatever.
Yeah, I have a cardboard box I put over the camera when I'm not using it. Then I feel safe. Yeah.
Safari will get what's basically what Brave already does natively, and sign in with Apple will go everywhere.
Good. Well, sounds great. Good. I'm all for that. And I know Apple is they've really positioned their brand as caring more about your privacy than other people. So it makes sense. Good. And so China wants to compete with GPS. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. They have, I think, in the past.
The Belt and Road thing, right?
Right. So they're putting up Beidou, which is their new GPS system, which is important in the sense that a lot of our devices use these systems for various functions. and including for things that you might not even expect. Like, for example, the way that our cell phones know the time all the time is because they link up with GPS satellites, because that's the way GPS works, is they're essentially just clocks in space. And
But they say it's a lucrative sector.
that's what I was wondering.
Does America somehow get money from people using
No.
GPS?
So what happened? So the history of GPS is this. So the military put up these satellites so that their boats could know where they are without having to use sextants all the time. And eventually the US government said, okay, this is okay, but let's put up the next generation. And when the next generation went up, the old generation became public. It's kind of like the ARPANET and the internet story. And it's all free to use, and it was all just a government project. And that's exactly what the government should be doing. And but how is this lucrative? You don't pay for the service.
That's why I'm looking at this. This makes them independent of U.S. and European systems, as if somehow we're going to use it as a weapon against them or turn it off and they'll be screwed.
Yes,
but
actually, that is an issue. So one of the things that we can do with GPS is in the middle of the war, we can disable it for our enemies and for ourselves too.
Well, okay, I can see why. I guess that would be all right. But
yeah, so absolutely, China should have their own GPS network that they can use, that they can depend on. You know, so they're not reliant on another country that might turn on them. But as far as being profitable, how is this? This is literally throwing money up in space.
This reminds me of like the F-Secure guy, Miko Hyponen, is always talking about how they need to make European things that are like Yahoo and Google and Gmail and stuff, so they aren't constantly relying on America for these important things because they got no privacy protection over here. And it's true, but there just never has been much incentive to fund a proper clone in Europe.
Right.
And
So I shouldn't get rid of my sextant. That's what I heard.
What's that?
I should keep it just in case.
Keep a sextant. Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone should have a sextant in their house, by the way. I fully endorse this sentiment. I'm not kidding.
Well,
isn't GPS vulnerable to spoofing?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's an unencrypted platform that just hangs around the air all the time and sends out coordinates and time data. So you can totally spoof it and do lots of fun stuff with GPS.
Now that you mentioned, I think the whole Chinese space race is really about the military and putting up killer satellites and stuff. And I think that's probably what this is. Just like the American system, it's probably primarily a military system with a little bit of civilian application as window dressing.
When in regards to profitability, it made me wonder. It said 120 countries use the service, so maybe they're paying some kind of government subscription fee or something.
No. There's no fee to use GPS whatsoever.
But you do need to have it in order to guide cruise missiles and stuff, which is the actual point of it. And so I imagine that's the point, because the public GPS is degraded by 50 yards. The real system is accurate to like an inch, and they use it to guide cruise missiles through valleys and stuff, so you can't stop them. And in order to prevent enemies from using it for that, they add deliberate noise to the public-facing one. So that's probably, I'm finally realizing why China had to do this.
Right. I like I said, I really don't see the profit in this. But the military applications, absolutely.
And then they can't just use ours for the military application because we have deliberately prevented that. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's part of the U.S., sort of retiring from the world and letting China dominate it, which is the general theme for quite a while. Anyway.
Yeah.
And I thought this was kind of fun. These Evil Corp, which I guess is named after a TV show or something, but it's a great name, great idea for a ransomware gang. They actually got caught and a bunch of them got indicted, but they're still around. But they have decided to make kinder, gentler ransomware. They have ransomware, but they don't dump your secrets and have further blackmail because they're trying to have less prosecution on their surviving members. But anyway, what I thought is pretty good, they make Wasted Locker. They change all your files with a extension of Wasted, your name and Wasted. So anyway, they really are pretty obviously having fun with their names, but it looks like they're still doing quite a lot, charging up $10 million to clean you up and stuff. It's a big prolific game, but they don't blackmail you just to commit a smaller crime to get prosecuted less. I'm not sure if that's going to really help, but they seem to be doing that. Anyway, and here's another one, Maze Ransomware.
Yeah, so this was kind of interesting. even hackers get burnt out. Even their workload gets to be too much sometimes, and they make mistakes too. So,
Oh yeah.
and this is a story about that. I thought it was pretty interesting because these guys who've been targeting like just organizations and companies all over the world made a mistake. They actually hit the wrong.
They dumped data and then tried to extort payment from the wrong company. Oh, that's good.
Right, right. Well, it wasn't even a company either. They tried to hit this architecture firm in New York and ended up hitting the Canadian like government standards agency, like their version of NIST.
This reminds me of a large number of people keep hitting NASA because they hate NSA. That's what I've been seeing for a long time.
Because they hate the NSA.
They hate the NSA, so they decided to get even by like hacking NASA, dumping NASA data.
Well, no. Well, no. What happens is that they don't realize that the extra A is a thing.
Yeah,
they think it's the same agency.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's been going on. Anonymous did that a few times. LSEC did it. A bunch of people keep doing that.
That is so funny. You'd think that they might, research their targets a little more, but not so much.
Yeah, probably fat-fingered.
They're like, why is it so easy to get into the to the NASA?
Yeah. Look, this NSA data is just sitting right out there.
Yes.
What the hell? I know.
Like a university, not a.
Yeah. Exactly.
Seems like there's a lot of science material in these systems.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So Hewlett Packard, that's what I thought. They're also making these techniques to office reopening.
Yep, and they're using their line of stuff.
Yeah.
Their servers, their Aruba infrastructure, their Edgeline systems. They're using what they have to basically like you were talking earlier, helping companies get back to work with the whole social distancing, the touchless entry, fever detection, augmented reality, that kind of stuff.
So I think this will just continue our segmentation of the culture. There'll be the tech people who are like the master race who get all these goodies, and then the non-tech people are just sort of the serfs that get ground underfoot. I think we'll continue with even more of that, and the coronavirus will just accentuate it.
Yeah, I think this is I think this is bad. I think that leaving it up to employers is not going to be a good thing going forward, because we're already seeing effects of that here, where even here in the Bay Area in San Francisco. I mean, one of the things that blew my mind was this was early last month, actually. There was a dentist's office opening up in San Francisco without proper PPE. And they were even telling their hygienists, like, okay, well, you've got to come back to work with no mask. And if you don't, then you're fired. And I mean, that's, first of all, I wouldn't want to go, personally as a patient, I would never want to go to a dentist that the employees aren't wearing proper PPE, not only because it's wrong to put your employees in danger like that, but it's also bad for the patients and the public, So when we're leaving it up to the employers like this, I think we're really making a mistake by doing that.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And that's the huge problem in America, is that since the federal government provides no guidance and no good examples at all, everybody just does whatever they want in the states and company. However, the companies are very wise to do this. If I ran a company, I would say, I have no faith in the government, so I'm going to take my own measures to protect my people and my customers. And that will become another way to differentiate my brand and say, we're the people that are careful about coronavirus, so shop here. I think that's what Amazon and Whole Foods are going to do. And I think that's certainly a wise brand strategy.
I hope so. I mean, my concern is that, the American worker was already considered and treated as expendable by employers. And I'm afraid that that's only going to increase now that there's an even bigger ready supply of expendable workers to keep shoving into
Well, what happens is you have two categories, like the Google people with the yellow shirts. Like Google has the tech workers to get free massages and meals, and then there's the ones they don't like to admit that are the serfs that get bussed in and paid almost nothing and don't get any of those benefits. And they actually fired some people when they released videos a couple of years ago revealing the underclass of Google serf level workers. But some of your employees, they do think are valuable and treat them well. Anyway, I think that's where we're headed. I think I don't see anything going to change, certainly before the next election, and realistically after it, because even if they put in Biden, Biden's not going to change anything much. That's his whole platform, is to not really rock the boat and be normal. Anyway, and this one I thought was very interesting. This invisible technique, and I went and found this picture from it. But go ahead, tell us about this one, Kaitlyn.
Right. So, a journalist was attacked on his phone, and this is why I spent a little extra time before the meeting. I said, hold on, let me get some more information. So it was about this article. So it wasn't very clear what happened, but there was a DNS hijacking on this journalist's phone by the government. So what the government did is they set up a fake cell tower, and there's the picture. They set up a fake cell tower in their van that the cell phone connected to, and they had their own DNS servers, and they redirected this person's cell phone when he visited a site or any sites to the site that they wanted the journalist to go to. This in turn put a backdoor on this journalist's phone, which allowed the government to spy on this journalist and figure out what this journalist was doing and everything. And so the next question is, wait, what? You go to a website and you get a backdoor on your phone? How does this work? So I had to do a bit more digging. It turns out the malware used is called Pegasus.
Mm-hmm.
It was used by other it's used by governments in the past to put malware on old outdated iOS devices remotely using the web browser. So they rooted his phone because it was outdated, and I thought this was funny because the article starts out like, this journalist is well and versed in cybersecurity and everything. It turns out the reason he got pwned is because his iPhone was just severely out of date.
Yep. Also, I thought this is the part I really looked up.
Yeah.
You connect over HTTP.
Right.
I was thinking it would have to be HTTP because it's a baseband attack, and a man in the middle can only hose you if you're using HTTP. So if everybody moves to HTTPS, this attack will become much more difficult.
It would be much more difficult. And so, if the government is involved, I mean, this is what they can do. They can just set up fans outside your house that look like cell phone signals and just wait days, weeks, months until you finally hit a HTTP website. Yeah. And then just throw malware on your phone and your host.
Yeah, and this is why modern browsers are beginning to refuse to connect to HTTP websites. They're starting to pop up warnings and everything saying you shouldn't be using HTTP at all for anything, which I think is definitely where we're all headed. Yeah, well, good. I guess that's it. Any more comments from anybody? Well, I'm going to stop the recording.